Hello and welcome to the Biz Communication Show. I'm Bill Lampton, the Biz Communication Guy. Every week bringing you a video interview with someone who has become an outstanding leader in communication and can share tips and strategies that help us in our business and professional life. Today is a very special privilege for me and for you, because I'm having the opportunity to interview and get those tips and strategies from Kare Anderson. Kare lives in Sausalito, California. She's known worldwide. And a few years ago, I dubbed her the Sage of Sausalito. Her credentials and credits would take up most of the show, but let me give you just a couple of them. She's an award-winning journalist with NBC and the Wall Street Journal. She's been an on-camera personality, so this is nothing new to her. She is a contributor as a writer for Forbes, the Huffington Post, the Harvard Business Review. She has written a number of top quality books. She's renowned as a TED and TEDx speaker, and she'll tell us what that's about. So with that background, you know that we're going to get some gems that we can use. All right, welcome to the Biz Communication Show.
Thank you.
One of the first questions I want to ask you is that as I look back over your bio, one of the things that struck me was that you said that you had to overcome an innate shyness. Tell us about that and how you handle it. That's an important part of communication.
I was a daydreamer and I didn't realize it. So I always felt too slow to respond. People would ask questions and I'd be pondering them and they'd moved on to something else. And I also wondered why people didn't always say what they felt. That's what it felt like. And I was a stutterer. But then there came this day when someone else lost his voice in grade school and asked me to speak up about a cause that mattered to us, and I did. And afterwards he said, you know, you didn't stutter. I didn't. And I think the next one was my bureau chief at the Wall Street Journal. He said, Kare, once you get on a roll, you ask questions and you take too long. But you've got enough stuff for another story. So I realized curiosity really made a difference for me. So that's the closest I can come to describing why.
That's fascinating. And of course, there are many prominent people who have become esteemed broadcasters. John Stossel is one who has had a prolonged stuttering problem, and one that was on the air for 35 years as a golf journalist, Ken Venturi from your state of California. Ken
Yes.
Venturi was a very shy kid because he stuttered. He said he took up golf because it was a loner sport, and he just let his clubs do the talking for him. Well, tell me, you have had such, and still have, such an astounding career in journalism. How did that all start?
My high school teacher said, since you won't talk so much still, why don't you ask people questions and write for the high school newspaper? And I believe once I started writing, it took off. When I was in college, the man who came for a year to teach us journalism, I just was so astounded by him. And he was the bureau chief. So one thing led to another. And when you get in a groove, he told me about a talent I didn't know I had, which I just will leave it there to think, when we actually try to step into someone else's shoes so it's not all about us, most everybody is fascinating in some ways. And that's how I started public speaking. They said, how can a shy person do that? I had runs in my nylons, as Tom would. And I said, when you think about the audience and you just get connected with them, there becomes an us there. And so those are traits that I think really help anybody. When you're in a groove of using your talent and you bring out other people's better side, It's a great way to get support. You don't push at them, you pull them in. And I
Well,
really believe that.
yes, and that reminds me so much about what you and I heard from the National Speakers Association. That's the first place that I heard about you. I remember I
Oh,
saw your name and I asked a mutual is the word that you love. I asked a mutual friend of ours, Mark Mayberry, what about this Kare Anderson? Is this somebody I should get to know? He said, oh man, you really should get to know her. And one of the things we heard there was when you get up to speak, it's not about you. If you can, as you say, Kare, focus on the audience, focus on your message, and forget entirely the impression that you're going to make, that's when you become real.
and when you see you can actually help people and you listen closely, yes, I agree. And this is certainly an era where we need to pull in people who may not agree with us in everything.
I mentioned a minute ago the word mutuality. Mutuality is something that you center your teachings, your career, and your life around. In fact, you have a book, Mutuality Matters. You have another book, Moving from Me to We. Talk to us about mutuality, why that's important for us personally, professionally, and for the world we live in.
If we want to grow and learn, then one of the ways to do that is deep listening. And especially when we get upset, because I think we learn more from our hot buttons and the people that bug us. Because if we don't know our own blind spots, we're destined to be reactive rather than proactive. And I think if you ask people questions and you say, tell me more about that, and you find that sweet spot of shared interest, it gives you some ground for you both to explore further and to acknowledge them. And I think when you get closer over time, a sign of a good friend is someone who can say, I disagree and this is why. Or you can say to them, here's a helpful idea I have for you. And they say, well, actually, it's not helpful. This is why. And instead of having your feelings hurt, you're iteratively getting more helpful to each other. As Adam Grant said, be a helpful helper. And that profoundly moves me, that someone being a helpful helper.
You remind me of someone that you and I both knew, Dottie Walters. Dottie said that one of the keys to succeeding in your interactions with other people would be after they have said something, say, tell me more.
Yes. Favorite question. Tell me more about that. She really lived that too.
Well, speaking of telling, as I mentioned at the outset, you are a keynote speaker. You've given speeches to a wide variety of audiences. And I noticed that there are speeches called TED speeches, and they're TEDx speeches. You've given those. What are those? How are you chosen? And what are the messages that you've given in those, Kare?
Well, I was lucky because I didn't try out. There's an extraordinary woman named Juliet Blake who heard about me somehow. She's a special project manager, and she produces films and movies. But she interviewed me, and I just wanted to tell her in the middle, you see parts of me that I didn't fully know. One of the biggest gifts, but I thought that's looked real sucky. So she said, okay, I noticed your expression. We're going to have you on. So what were you going to say? So that intuitive listening and that close, that was helpful. So TEDs are global things. TEDx's are regional things that all over the world. There's some really big ones and small ones. I spoke about mutuality matters, but also the fundamental mission of my life, how to become an opportunity maker with and for others. And it's a way that you use your best talents together on something that's meaningful. And up to 7 people, I think, is the tightest for us team. But I think once you've done that and you accomplish something together, it's that next thing that you work on because you trust each other more. It's been proven. And you have better ideas. So the second and the third and the fourth time are extraordinary. And I really believe the more you highlight other people's talents for them and in front of people that matter, there's a way that you're lifting yourself up and them. So that's why I believe in opportunity makers. And I've met several, and I think that you're one. And I think that's one of the reasons that we've become close over the last few years, because it's not always about us. It's citing helpful things for each other. And you give concrete, specific insights, which is another thing I really value. They're not generalizations.
It reminds me, too, that you not only talk about this as a professional leader, but it's very clear to me from what I've read of your writings and what I hear you saying, you have a very strong humanitarian streak. There are causes that you support. Talk to us a little bit about that, please.
I think if you feel what's going on empathetically, you realize what sticks with you. And for me, prison reform, something that'll never happen in my lifetime, outlined solitary confinement. But when I spoke about this to people that already hired me to speak or consulting, I said, does this interest you? And I believe in the value of unexpected allies. And I've gotten such close friendships. The other is I'm working with SEP and some others about how to get resources into refugee camps overseas, food, basics for them to build some kind of tent or something to live in, but most of all, to get the technology into them so they can learn some skill that makes them more valuable to get out. And it's just ironic how much power you get when you're working on something that matters to you. I just will say, Bill, the last few years, the people that I get to be around, I'm just in awe of, that they're choosing at a stage in their life when they could go just play golf on bridge or something. They're doing things. And as one man said, by the way, Kare, now I've been working on this prison reform with you, I'm really a believer. And those guys that you introduced me to that we're working on, I thought we'd hate each other, we like each other. But remember this, most importantly, my wife likes me better.
I told
and that
you,
really touches me.
Yeah, I mentioned to you one time that when I was teaching communication at the University of Georgia, there was one summer there where the department head sent a memo around and said that someone in our department would have the opportunity, and that's one of your favorite words, have the opportunity to teach the speech communication basic course in the Atlanta Federal Prison. Drive over there 2 nights a week, teach for 2.5 hours per time. I didn't even let the memo rest on my desk. I ran around to the office. I didn't want anybody else to get there first, and I wound up having that privilege. Every time, of course, that I walked out of there and had my car keys in my pocket and went back to my warm home, I thought how blessed I was. I thought how, in many ways, I know it's a corny phrase possibly, but there, for the grace of God, go I, because all of us in our lives have made mistakes. And I think this was not our main topic, but since we're on it, I think you and I both believe in human redemption. And good gosh, the mistakes that I've made both professionally and personally in life, if I had to pay for them for decades, I would be in bad shape.
Very well put. I agree. And to be around people believe in redemption. There's something called Delancey Street here, where people that are coming out of prison or drug things, they're put in small teams. They get to learn 10 different kinds of jobs, including a restaurant, to moving, to a Christmas tree. But the esprit de corps and the mutuality of their mutual support and accountability and the specificity and learning ways to be helpful and seeing the respect they get in people's eyes. One time I was at a fundraiser where Delancey Street's restaurants, where it's hosted. So there's all these very important people in the room. And I turned around to the man serving me and I said, you know, it just occurs to me, you've got better manners than some of the other people in this room. And the person next to me started laughing. He says, I think you're right. So I think there's ways we've got to reinforce people at the point of things they're doing that we genuinely admire.
This reminds me of another major theme of yours, and that is that we seem to have the habit, the tendency to associate only with people like us, people who have our preferences, people who look like us, people who talk like us. And in recent years, especially, you've
Yes.
been asking us to broaden our scope and to connect with those who are unlike us, that we will both benefit, we will both grow. Talk about that a little bit, please.
I think the more unlikely your allies, you get to see more sides to a situation. And especially if they are looking affronted at first. I was in an elevator and accidentally knocked over this guy. I turned around real quick because I was startled by something. And we both walked out of the elevator, and he's about 6'5". And he said, do that very often? I said, no. He says, you don't know who I am, do you? I said, no. He said, I play for the Golden State Warriors. Let's sit down a moment. I want to figure you out. But it was just a trip. But I really do believe, and there's something called the ugly man in the room, a group of pro athletes taught me. I said to them, when you go in a room and you're the main character, go up to the person who's getting the least attention. Sit down and be really interested. You'll rewire the power in the whole room, and you may make an unexpected ally. Well, they came up with that corny title. But several of them have come back to me and said, I really like this. This has opened up opportunities, people frankly telling me parts of me I hadn't noticed. So I think it's really a rich opportunity for fresh adventures, unlikely allies. Read Going to Extremes and The Big Sort. They were books written 9 years ago that show that we're hanging out with people just like us. Well, that makes it confining. You don't get to test your beliefs and get feedback and see other perspectives.
I would imagine in your case, you've had the opportunity to speak and consult and coach in different countries and cultures, which has even brought this home to you even more.
Very much so. Being in the UK the month before Brexit and seeing the different arguments pro and con, and then coming back to our election, I think it's really important that we're curious and we check around hot buttons and see what matters. And I'll just say, the most important word to me actually is specificity, because when you get specific, you've got to be clear. What's your top mission? You're more likely to pull ideas in. When you're more specific, you're more credible, you're more memorable, and you gain clarity. Those are pretty important things in life, I believe. You also realize, well, actually, it's not this my top mission, it's this or this. But until I get specific, I wouldn't realize that.
What's next for you? What's just around the corner that excites you?
Well, one of the miracles is people that I've met here in the different countries. And as you well know, after meeting planners have gotten to know you well, it's a pretty clubby group. So I'm going for pleasure on pleasure trips like to Bali, Singapore, and Hong Kong. But in those, because of people I've met I admire, I'm getting to coach and speak while I'm there. And in June, we're going to Norway and the Netherlands again. And I'm from a Danish background, so I'm getting to see some people and say, yes, I'll speak, but I want you to stay so I can ask questions afterwards. So I think I want to be more overseas again with my sweetie, who's got a great sense of direction and understands logistics and has traveled many places. So Bob's very helpful in this. But I really want to see firsthand how people are reacting again and come back and maybe have some helpful insights for other people as well as myself.
I've been amused for many years when some people will say that they're internationally known, and if you were to press them against the wall, it would mean that they had a cousin in Berlin who would know them. But in your case, truly, you do have a well-deserved international reputation that will continue to grow. Time for one more question. That is, you are well known for the expression, say it better. Is that what you try to help us do?
Yes, ironically, it was the idea of another friend, and then they gave me the URL to own it. But I really believe the more we can say it better in the best sense, it gains mutual clarity and self-clarity. And I believe we're living in a world where if your characterization is more vivid and credible than someone else's, you may be the janitor, and more people are noticing you on the intranet of your company than the CEO, and people notice it. So I think the power of a well-crafted, pithy characterization has never been more vital, for good and for bad. This is an era of the law of unintended consequences, from drones to the way you speak. So as you well know, I'm speaking to the choir, having that capacity to say it better, it takes you to new worlds.
Kare, many people who have watched this wonderful video conversation with you want to know how to contact you. So first of all, thanks so much for being with us today. It's been my pleasure to host you. I know that in 3 or 4 months, when you're back from some of your international travels, speaking, consulting, coaching, we'll do this again. In the meantime,
I'd love to.
People will want more information about you. So tell us, please, your preferred ways for people to get in touch with you.
They could go to the website, sayitbetter.com. I'll be generous and just say it's my first name, Kare, K-A-R-E, at sayitbetter.com. I'd love to hear their specific feedback on this or anything else.
Terrific. Kare, the time has flown by. As an old saying, time flies when you're having fun, and it certainly has been fun to be with you. I will say to those who have been with us that Kare Anderson, my friend, was right 20 years ago. She is someone well worth following, well worth learning from, and not only that, you will find, as I have, that she's a very generous person with her thoughts, her advice, her support, and her genuine friendship. Real blessing to be with you, Kare, and thank you. And thank all of you for being with the Biz Communication Show. I'm the Biz Communication Guy. Looking forward to being with you again next week.
Thank you.